A lot of people are waking up now and realizing that subtle realm wants to participate with humans. Other people have channeled are saying, please share this information with any of your friends who are open to the fact that there are beings outside of the human world. The fairies are saying, like, hey, we're not these little archaic creatures with wings. You only see a tiny bit of us. You see what you're comfortable seeing. So when you portray us, that's how your mind wants to see us or feels comfortable. They say all the time, hey, listen, guys, we are not these little like medieval people that you think we are. Why do you think your computers go down? Why do you think you have these glitches? We understand how everything works in your world. We are so far ahead of you that we share information with you when we want to, and we can also prevent you from hearing things. I think of them as free agents. There's no contract. I do believe they're all divas. They want you to treat them special.
Welcome everyone to our next episode. Today we're going to dive deeper into the magic world, into the world of fantasy. These subtle realms are actually here, very close to us, and we need to learn more about them. What are those guides and supporters that near us, and specifically the fairies? There's elemental fairies, the galactic fairies, and many other incredible energies. I'm really excited to have my dear sister, CK Kellman. Welcome. She is fairies aficionada and biggest cheerleader and channeler of these frequencies. She interacts with them all the time, and we'll get to know today how fairies can help us in our life. What excites you about the fairies?
First, I want to thank you for having me on, Deanna. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Remember, guys, magic is real. So always open yourself up. And if you're really like not sure, just adopt the theory of the willing suspension of disbelief. Let your imagination just take a hold, and whatever you feel or see or hear is right. There's no right or wrong. So just go with that feeling. My first encounter, I think, with fairies was back when I was little. I was in my crib one day, and my mom tells me the story many times. She says, yeah, you just entertain yourself. You would be talking in some strange language, using your hands and just not crying and talking. You just were very busy occupying yourself with something you were talking to. So I think that was really my first encounter. My parents are very black and white. So if you couldn't see it in 3D, it didn't exist. So that was really suppressed. I think my most psychic spiritual friends are the ones whose parents encouraged them when they were little about their imaginary friends to participate with those and not to say, oh, it doesn't exist, but just go with the flow. Because little kids really come in with that knowledge that they lose much later on in life. So I think I came in with those. And then I used to hear voices when I was growing up in my house. I'd hear telepathically. I'm clairaudient, so I connect with voice energy. And I'd hear things and I would just not pay attention because my parents said it really didn't exist. And then later on, I started studying Reiki and I became a Reiki master. And the people in my group would say, what is it with all these beings around you? Would you please control them? What do you mean? They throw the paper off the table. There's wind. They would knock things off. I go, yeah, they follow me around. I didn't know what they were. Later, I learned they were fairies. I have a thing, an energy that they like to be around me. I like to share joy, love, and light. And ones I work with now are the gangster fairies of the 305. 305 because I am in Miami, Florida, United States of America, the southernmost portion, and they are playful and they're fun, but they're not wicked and they're not evil. We're buddies. We hang together. I do wonderful things for them and they do wonderful things for me. We're different in that we're very dense energy and they're not. They're more light beings and they don't understand our obsession with all physical objects and why we have to have this and that. And it's so important to us. So we help them emotionally understand what's going on planet Gaia here. And they help us spiritually grow and understand we're not just a physical body. We're so much more than that. This is just one small aspect. So we work together. And a lot of people are waking up now and realizing that subtle realm wants to participate with humans because the books that are coming out that other people have channeled are saying, please share this information with any of your friends who are open to the fact that there are beings outside of the human world that we've just taught in the Western world for so many years. It's very interesting what they're coming out. The fairies are saying, like, hey, we're not these little archaic creatures with wings. You only see a tiny bit of us. You see what you're comfortable seeing. So when you portray us, that's how your mind wants to see us or feels comfortable. The fairies are actually taller than humans. They're shadowy and they're more ethereal. And I feel their presence when they're around. And there's ways you can call that presence in, but they're just not these little flitter things. So there's all different kinds of fairies from folklore. You'll learn about pixies and everything like that. But that's how the human mind feels comfortable in experiencing the fairies. It's very interesting when you open up how they start communicating back to you, leave each other gifts all the time back and forth. It's very unusual for them to actually be living in a human's house. They don't usually do that unless you're a very special person. I think of them as free agents. They can come and go anytime they want. And I'm fortunate to live near a tropical area with beautiful palm trees, lots of beautiful plants, the ocean. So they do what they want. Occasionally they'll flit off and I'll send them to go visit someone who wants to experience that. Sometimes they come right back. They don't like dogs, cats, or birds. They're divas. They want to be the center of attention. So if you want to communicate with them, you just got to make them your primary focus.
Perfect environment for them. They love flowers. They love pretty things. And I remember at some point you mentioned it was honey and chocolate. So you also give them some offerings. From my own experience, when I traveled and wanted to connect to fairies, I remember I brought some sparkly jewels and crystals, and they tend to really appreciate the sparkles.
This is over here is a casino chip, $100 casino chip from Wynn Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was doing fairy readings one night and I stumbled on it in the streets of Miami, a very street that's not traversed by many people. And I said, oh, thank you. They got the message. They try to do things back for humans as well, little things like that. A lot of times I'll find St. Christopher's medals or St. Benedict's or even Mary, little shiny objects in the street like that. And I'm told that's another sign that the fairies leave for people who are open to their world as well. Really take care of me too. Here's some interesting stories when you really connect. I left a candle burning in my house one day, not on purpose, guys, for 72 hours. I went away for the weekend and it was just on a plate. It wasn't a 7-day Advent candle or something like that. And I came in and my house smelled so good. And I was like, what's going on here? And I ran over to the table and the candle was still lit on this plate. And I'm like, oh my God. And inside the candle was a heart and a little pond. And the fairy said, we weren't going to let you burn down the house. We live here too. And I have a picture of that, which I'm happy to share with anyone who contacts me. It's very energetically charged. So that was the first time they saved me from burning down my house. Another time I was in the kitchen. Cooking is not my forte. And I was trying to make popcorn with olive oil on the stove. And I didn't realize the burning point of olive oil or whatever. And the whole stove starts flaming. And I'm looking at it on days. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I don't have a fire extinguisher. You're not supposed to put water on an oil flame. And for some reason, they pulled my hand, this bag of Celtic salt, and I threw it on the pot. And the whole thing went out. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know the bag was out at that point. No damage in my kitchen. And again, I'm thanking the fairies because it's the Celtic salt, which they love. So if anyone tells you fairies don't like salt, that is not true. They love it.
Usually they put salt out to chase away the entities and negative kind of energies. Just on a previous podcast, I was talking to Joe about home clearings, and that's more about earthbound spirits and things like that. These are not ghosts, not earthbounds, they're elemental. So they actually like salt.
Yeah, and it's specific to Celtic salt. It's because they're originally from that Ireland area. They love it. When I tell you they love it, the bag is always going missing. I use very little. I use it for homeopathic reasons. I put a little salt in my coffee or under my tongue in the morning, things like that. They adore the salt. Whenever I bake for them, which is another thing, I don't have a traditional altar for them. I'm not really into that. My fairies are urban. They're like with the program. They want flowers. They want little stuffed animals. They love stuffed animals. They love playful objects like that. Lots of color. They left this for me the other day. I found on my path a watermelon with a smile. These are typical of little fairy things I'm always finding around. And Sometimes they want me to bring them in the house, so I do. They are very fun, just fun spirited. But anyway, then the salt clears everything for them, but they like to play with it. And I tell everyone about the Celtic salt to attract the fairies, and people have had luck with that. I think it's like the way folklore has been passed down. Sometimes they don't want to share this information, or they don't want people to call them in who they don't want to experience or aren't ready for them, or they're not the right vibration. But for the fairies I work with, who are very urban, very modernized, this is what they like. Another fun thing is eucalyptus. I put eucalyptus in the shower now, and they use it as their bath slide. They just love it. I have to constantly get eucalyptus for them. I could be in Trader Joe's, which is an American type supermarket, and I'll have my groceries in the car. They're like, we want eucalyptus. I'm like, now you tell me? You couldn't have told me we're online, so I have to go back in and get what they want. But whenever I get a message like that, a flower, if they want a food, sometimes I'll bring something home. Why am I bringing home this? I don't even like this. They want that. So instead of leaving food on an altar or honey or nuts, what I do is I'll make a special bread for them, a toast in the morning, and I'll put almond butter or peanut butter on it, or bee pollen, honey, chocolate, whatever they want. And I'll leave it in the kitchen so they get their energetic, whatever they get from it. You're not going to see bite marks on your bread. It doesn't happen. One fairy did channel that they do eat. They told a human that we eat, but tiny portions, and we don't eat animals, and we eat the juice and the fruits of berries and plants. But anyway, so they energetically get their first dibs, and I get soggy bread later on. That's okay. But this way we have no bugs in the house. I don't like leaving like that kind of stuff around inside. Outside's another story, but they have an area in my house that's like dedicated to them.
Most of the fairies are elemental that we interact with, and they're outside. But we also have galactic fairies. My first experience with elemental fairies was when my light language opened up. And I remember I went to the forest, and these frequencies started to interact with me. And they're so playful, like you said. I love them so much because they really remind you of the innocence and the joy. And so they're like, and then you have a smile on your face right away. They shift you in a second, that frequency. The galactic fairies, I feel like these frequency is not even so much here. It's like part of your more galactic frequency that you interact with as well.
Galactic, let me tell you how I was exposed to it. I was also working on different rooms, and I realized I started hearing light language in my sleep, like a funny language. I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, listen, I have no idea what you're saying to me. You got to speak English because I'm just not getting it. And they said, we're doing a deal. We'll speak English, but you have to speak in rhyme to us, and we're going to answer you in rhyme. So this entity named Nicholas Sebastian Xavier Knight told me his name. He was the one experienced to me, and we agreed. So he would write me, and I would channel in poetry what he was saying. It would usually be at 4 a.m, and I'm like, you can't do this. I'm not getting up and putting out my voice recorder or writing. So we cut a deal again. He'd come through in a meditation state to me, which he does anytime I want to. I could just sit and I'll start rhyming, and then we rhyme back to each other. And he turned out to be, I didn't know this for a very long time because I don't ask him questions. It's like what comes through. He's half Fae. I didn't know this. I found out later, if you speak in rhyme and they talk in rhyme, it's Fae energy. I never knew that, but I've been doing that from the beginning. And when my light language opened up, first thing people were saying to me was, do you know you rhyme in light language? I'm like, no. They go, but I go, it makes sense because my teacher would rhyme to me. So yeah, very interesting. But so Nick was half Fae. And when he finally told me the galactic Fae element, his planet where he was from was destroyed many years ago. So his ancestors went to other planets. He said the Fae planets were very generous and took them in. There was more than one. I think there was 2 or 3. I haven't gotten all the information because I let him tell me when he feels like it. They made it over years and years. So he's half Fae. He really is. And he's very thankful, his ancestors, for the Fae planets for taking them in. He's not as childlike. He's more intellectual, maybe like more like Arcturian type of thinking, because we can get into it and think clearly. But yet he has that creative fairy. He has to rhyme everything and be playful. And he invites people on his ship for parties and drinks. I like to do guided meditations to Nick's ship. So he's my galactic Fae connection.
Mm.
The ones that are the urban fairies, the gangster fairies at 305, they say all the time, hey, listen, you guys, we are not these little like medieval people that you think we are. Why do you think your computers go down? Why do you think you have these glitches? We understand how everything works in your world. We are so far ahead of you that we share information with you when we want to, and we can also prevent you from hearing things which we don't think at that particular moment are meant for you to hear. So when everyone says, "Oh, it's the fairies playing with the computer today," they're right, because they said we know this stuff. We are much more technology advanced than you are, but people don't realize that, especially the traditional European type of fairy people who see them as this evilly or trickster or medieval thing who live in the caves and do all these things. These fairies are with the program. They have modernized, and those are the ones that I deal with. There's many different types, but I always think of things for the love and for the highest and best good for me and for the Fae. So those are the ones, the energy I call in and we communicate. They do things like they could be trickster, like let's say I'm having an argument or someone's not behaving properly with me or giving me a hard time. They'll do little things. They'll trip them up. I've seen them break objects that belong to that person, but nothing serious. They're just saying, we get you. We're defending you. So they do little things like that for you. But I'm constantly buying them gifts for no reason, and they do the same thing for me. So it's not like I have to call them in and bribe them. We're really friends.
How do you transition them into the house? Is that an invitation that you opened up your house for them? I would say they like your guides too. They follow you wherever you go. So even outside of your house, how do you bring them into your field?
I think it's very unusual for them to actually take up residence in a house. From what I understand, it's very unusual. Then again, I don't consider myself usual.
Maybe your frequency matches them. Is that most likely what's happening?
And it's interesting because they do pick me out. I was in Paris and the dollar was even, and I was in one of these Depot Vend resale type shops, and I had gotten a Hermes Kelly bag from 1964, like this beautiful thing. The price was just the cheapest you're ever going to see a Hermes bag at the time, and the lady liked me, and she knew I wasn't buying it to resell; it was for me. And I brought it back to the hotel room, and Charlotte was there. I call her Lottie, and she was a very old Fae, and she lived in this shop. And I figured maybe she's playing in the hotel room with the Hermes bag. She came back to Miami with me, and she's a really old Fae. I started writing down when I channeled with her history because she's a European Fae, old. Fairies, by the way, in case people don't know, are not immortals. They're incarnate beings like humans. Their lifespan tends to be 350 to 400 years. So they live a lot longer than we do. Therefore, they procreate a lot less. They don't need a lot of baby fairies. Everything is slower, and just you have to dial it down when you deal with them, especially for me because I'm high energy. So I just have to get connected. I just have to really dial it down, and you have to focus on them. So Charlotte likes to live in the closet because she's really old, but she travels a lot to her very friends. She did come back to Miami. I was really impressed. Whenever she's here, the bag she could stay with, and she doesn't like noise and she doesn't want to interact with the other fairies. She's an older woman, fairy, and she's really ethereal. Her energy is really out there. She doesn't have a strong body.
Do you know how old she is?
I never asked her, but she talks about things from like the 1700s. So she's probably like 300 something. It's not polite to ask a woman your age. She knows many stories. So when I get into it with her, I started writing the channeling fairy like book about their experiences, and she's the one who started speaking. Then when I was channeling her, the other ones wanted to talk. The book is different fairies talking, giving their perspective on things, how it is to be a modern fairy, an urban fairy is what I call it. They're here. If you open your heart and you open your mind, you can experience that joy and love and light. My feeling is, why be miserable and negative when you could be happy and positive? It's just as easy. It takes a lot of energy to really get negative. It's like red light, green light. If you have a bad day or a bad experience, let it go, move on, reset like the computer. Just reset, start again.
These frequencies definitely have the lightness and the innocence in them. And I think we experience in this physical reality through our density, through polarization. So for us, it's easy to get bogged out, but it's important to know that we have a conscious choice to shift, right? Anytime I start channeling fairies, I just shift in a second into that higher frequency. It's just so much fun. I even remember months ago, there was in New York this light language circle, and the energies was really heavy and people were just releasing a lot. I was just holding a container. It wasn't in my workshop. At some point, the energy just got too dense and like a fountain of fairies came out of my mouth. They just took over to point with laughter and giggles and innocence. And sometimes that's what we need. We need just to remember that we are children just like them. We have the lightness. It's good to have different perspectives. It doesn't have to be always light. The darkness also serves its purpose, but it's important to drop out of it as well and not be so heavy and serious.
Talking about heavy and serious, my profession, I work with a lot of heavy and serious people all the time.
Right.
And it's so funny, like even in a very serious deposition type of setting, they assist where I could be taking a deposition and they could say to me, ask about that bank. I'm like, and then I'll say, what about the account you had at Ocean Bank? And someone on the other side, an attorney, could say, I didn't put down that they have an Ocean Bank account. I said, why don't you ask your client if they do? And the client goes, yeah, I do. And they all look at me, how did you know that? Gee, I don't know, but that's like that nudge that even comes through. It just breaks it up or it lightens thing. And I could say kiddingly, oh yeah, it's the fairies. Whatever you could do, lighten it up. It's so much easier because even if someone is grumpy or whatever, sometimes like I'll see somebody like an old grumpy man, whatever, and I'll say, good morning, how's your day? And looks at me, did she just say hello to me? And you just know you bring that joy and light. That might be the only nice thing someone's going to say to him that day. So you try to just share that because it's very contagious. Paying it forward is a great idea too.
Yeah.
Always do something nice for someone. Don't think of in return, and the universe will provide for you tenfold. Something wonderful will happen to you in the future.
So back to how they look like. I love that you said that we use imagination and we sometimes think of them as Tinkerbells, like these little beings that just sparkle dust. Or I think I was sharing with you, they had that whole movie where the Fae was portrayed like a tall human with the wings. There's always wings involved. Why do you think wings are a big aspect of imagination of the human,
It's
of how we portray the fairies?
I think it's just a way. Number one, it's like a way of separating a human from a fae because a fae really does look like a human. I mean, there's very tall fae around who are tall and slender, and they dress in robes, and you might even think they might be human, but for the fact that they, have wings. And I've heard sometimes they don't. My thing is more, I feel them and I hear. And if I do see, it's more shadows. I see them out. I haven't seen them I've seen them in my house a couple of times from the corner of my eye. The colors when they've done something nice for me, like when I've had the fire incidents and I thank them profusely, they'll start to show me colors. Like they'll flip by a little, like a flash of color will go by, and you'll go, "Did I really see that?" And then I'll see like another color. So just to confirm that they acknowledge my connection with them. When I'm outdoors, I do see more of those flash of colors. They're much happier and they're just ones that I'm seeing around because I spend a lot of time in nature. And if you just start hanging out with a particular tree you like or trees, you will just start to feel into that. Put your arms around the tree and ask the tree, are you female? Are you male? Are you non-binary? Do you have a name? And see what comes up because you can get a lot of information from trees.
Totally. They all speak to each other. I have my favorites and I hug them every morning. And the trees are incredible. They have the whole mycelium network of communication. In my backyard, when I just moved here, I put little doors and little lights everywhere. And I'm inviting the fairies to live in these spaces too. And I feel like they like that. Give them a permission to have a house, like those little fairy houses. I've seen a lot of them in Iceland and other places.
I do believe the role divas, they want you to treat them special. They like when you indulge them in things like that and recognize their needs, treat them special. They definitely like that. They're attracted to all that stuff. They're never going to be in an area where it's heavily populated or they're not wanted. They like nature. So if you have a backyard and it's still like suburban or urban,
Mhm.
you encourage it by bringing these beautiful trinkets to them. They're more likely to come around and say, let's check this out.
I also experienced fairies and elves in Iceland. It was really interesting. It was this beautiful like rock formation. They call it the fairy church. It looked like a church too. And the fairies were actually living inside. I could feel it was like a whole hub of them. It was a very special place. As I was interacting with them, I left a lot of trinkets as well. And they like that. Sometimes in some special places around the world, that happens as well. So they do congregate in certain areas. It's like its own civilization in some ways. They can't be living together in one space. But in general, I think they like a lot of freedom.
Yeah, and it's different too because they're not as dense. It's not like they're living in a bedroom and they have a
Right.
shower and everything like that. Their energy, that they're not always in a physical form the way we perceive a physical form to be. It's more a more energetic kind of thing. In fact, what they explained to me is when you want to connect with them, think of our world as a circle, and then next to our world is another circle the same way, and the two circles like intersect together, and that intersection is called the other world. So it's not their world per se, it's not our world. We share that. So when you want to communicate with them, that's the place that's really easy to go to in a meditation because they'll come and we'll come, and you could feel the energies there. It's an easy place to speak to the fairy or get connected.
And it's all through intention to step into that in between world that you mentioned in because the realms kind of collide. And I think that's what you're trying to explain.
And to get there, the easiest thing is I strongly encourage anyone who wants to work with Fae is develop a serious meditation practice. And meditation could look like many different things, but do something that works for you that you can consistently do. You don't have to be in an position with your legs crossed, traditional yoga or whatever. You could be just outside by yourself, sitting on the grass or walking. You can get into a trance of whatever exercise you're doing. You could be lying down, whatever works for you. You want to get to that quiet place, really try to like just get inside yourself, quiet place, however you can get there. And the more you're good at that and the more you can quiet your mind, it's going to be easier for you to connect with those realms. So that's the first thing I always tell everyone. Get a serious meditation practice for you, whatever it is. And it's more like quality than quantity. It's not that you have to do it every day if you don't have time, but when you do it, really seriously take it. Picture a time that works for you and then learn that feeling so you can get out of your head and just dial everything down. Because if you want to connect, it's really subtle. And I'm type A, so if I can get there, anyone can, which is why I like to work with professionals, teach them how to meditate, beginner meditation. Because if I could do it, I can get anyone there. So
I absolutely agree with you. The stillness really matters, the stillness of the mind. At some point, it becomes automatic where you don't necessarily even need to practice as much. It can be meditation on the go. You
exactly.
sometimes I drive and I'm meditating at the same time and I'm listening to music or podcasts and I'm connecting to these energies. I call it a spiritual muscle. It becomes your autopilot where it's part of your reality and you live in that reality. Even if you're out there in the court or any corporate environment, you still connected to that realm because it never really disappears. It's just your awareness is heightened. If you're out in the park outside of the building, you'll get to interact with them more by the water. I think it's all about awareness. It's just constantly trying to be in tune with the subtleties of our realities, realizing we're not in the matrix of just this plane. There's so many other planes that all here exist simultaneously. I love how you said it's that when they cross over, and there's many crosses. So we have the fairies, we have the elves, we have so many other beings that are here. It's just some areas, maybe there's more of them than others, but they're all available and we can interact at any point. Nothing really stops us.
It doesn't matter what you label something or call it, it's more of your intention. If you have an intention to connect for the highest and best, whatever you're connecting with, you want to call it a fae, you want to call it an elemental, a guide, it's more the intention. They're not so concerned with giving you who they are, what they are. In fact, they're a little cagey about that. A lot of times they don't have names or they don't want to share their names at all. I give everyone names because it's easy for me. I go, okay,
Mm.
give me your nickname. Sorry, this is what you're being called. But it's not important to them. They don't understand our connection with everything has to be so possessive and physical objects. They're like, what is this? What is this with you guys? You have to have this and that, so much more. So they teach us, which is great. And we teach them emotions, which is great too. This is the first time in a long time where they really are expressing an interest to work with humans, and humans are also expressing an interest to get to know what's out there, because at some point in the future it's going to become much more clear to the 3D world.
We have the center stage of everything. Every being, galactic being, elemental being is watching as humanity is becoming more awake and interacting with these different realms. And I think they're all interested to interact. but usually you need to be the one inviting them in. There's this thing of law of non-interference. They're not necessarily going to interact with you unless you're open to that and you continue evolving that connection. I remember in my past lives, and I was at some point a witch or whatever you want to call it in some Eastern European forest, 1600s. At the time when I lived in nature, I did have a lot of fairies around me. I was working with herbs and I had a little hut in the forest. The fairies were actually my helpers in the work that I was doing. So I think we did go through periods more connected to subtle realms in different lifetimes where fairies were very involved in what we were doing. And I think now they just reconnected.
I think we share, it depends on where you are in your life. If you go back to wanting to work with the herbs a lot, you may pick up that more fairy energy
Right.
because you're not, and I'm not the only people they deal with. They've got other people they're assigned to deal with. Whoever needs help, they go around. It's really unusual, I'm told, to have what I have with them around all the time. As I said, they're very particular. They want to be divas. They don't like noise. They don't like kids. They want to be the center. And my house is quiet. I live right on the water, so they can just go to the ocean. They can go to the bay. They can go to the fields of flowers. There's a lot of tropical, plant reserved areas here with beautiful exotic plants. So it's a great area for them. I think of them as free agents. There's no contract. They do whatever they want. It's fine. They want to come and go. It's not like we have a soul contract. We're like stuck together. It's just because we choose to interage, because we interact together, because we love that joy and light and fun. And we like to bring that to everybody. And everyone always knows when I'm around, they're like, I feel this energy, or a psychic could come in my house. What's going on over here? Oh, that's the fairies area. They just feel that heavy. There's a dense amount of them. It's not just one. They all like to come and check it out and play. And the ones that are here bring their friends. And they come back and forth, which is fine. So I always say I travel with my entourage. I'm never by myself. When I'm in my car or I'm shopping, they're like, what's around you? I'm like, oh no, that's just a fae.
The entourage, I love that.
It's very easy because this way they come and go. It's not like we have to stay together all the time, but they love experiencing urban things. They really do. And I think that's the thing a lot of people don't talk about, that they are so modern and technologically more advanced than we are. They have like whole different ways of living in their cities and everything like that. It's totally different than we. Much more light energy, not so physical where you're sitting in front of a computer typing or whatever. It's not like that.
Is your understanding, CK, that they've been here always?
There were certain fae who wanted nothing to do with coming down to Earth and being with being human-like. They just wanted to stay up in the galactic clouds and energetically not come near us. And then there were other ones who weren't sure what they wanted. So there's different divisions as they split. And then the ones who chose to come down here are the ones we communicated with. But there are others who are like, we are just not having any part of this. This is not our jam.
Many of us here to help Mother Earth Gaia to shift to higher frequency dimensional plane. Do they have that type of soul mission as well? Is that why they're here?
They're definitely here to assist humanity for sure, because they share Gaia with us. Even though we don't see them in a 3D way, they share this plane and they don't want us messing it up. Yeah, so they are here to assist us for sure, as well as learning things for themselves. But yes, the ones that choose to interact with humans also want to help raise the resonance of a planet.
Could a fae incarnate as a human and then have a human experience and then become a fae again?
The only thing I know about that is the crazy books that are now popular.
Which one for those?
There's a human who becomes a high fae, and there's a whole series of books. Don't get me started, because the fae are portrayed very violent and very detailed and very gory, cutting up humans and all kinds of things. Those are not the fields I play in, okay? Your intentions are what's important. I only call in the highest and best good. I have a blanket thing. Any lower frequencies are not permitted. And I could be missing information, but for right now, that's just not the fields I'm playing with. For my purposes here, I just want to bring everyone in the urban fields vibrations up. I don't want to play in dark fields that I am not particularly comfortable with today.
Probably have also some sort of free will, right, to interact with different frequencies. So they also get to choose whether they play more in the light or they play more in the dark, because in the dark there is also resources and power. They probably also get to choose which experience they want to go through.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of written, especially in Europe, about those interactions with the Fae, who I don't necessarily deal with. And they say you should be, very cautious and don't call in this energy and things like that, and what they've done in the past. And there's lots of folklore stories. So yeah, there is a history like that. But those particular people also don't understand that there's modern ones who know how to use a computer, know how to shut down an airport.
Is there a story with that?
Yeah, I remember even a couple of weeks ago with there was a computer glitch with they had to cancel flights because of the upgrade in one of the systems or whatever. What I'm saying is behind all those technological glitches, the fairies know what they're doing. They know how to manipulate technical data. That's why even when we're having things, we're talking in a room and all of a sudden it goes blank and you're like, I didn't do it. Did you do it? I didn't do anything. Certain information they do not want recorded or shared publicly, and they'll shut that down. I'm sure that's happened to you even in your podcasts.
Yeah, sometimes some entities for sure or energies trying to control technology. And even you and I, when we tried to record the first time, the fairies were not playing nice.
I have asked them many times about that, and they giggle and laugh and they go, just not the right time. It's just not, no, just no. Maybe they didn't have their chocolate that day. Maybe they were like just having an issue, whatever. I know me, before I have coffee in the morning, I can be grouchy. I know it was them and I accept that. That's the other thing I accept. I don't try to figure out why. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to accept this and move on instead of wasting energy trapped in why. Release it back to the universe. We start with a clean slate and let's move on. This energy is only finite. So whenever you have anything that's not working for you, just release it, let it go, because you make room for clear, good energy that matches your vibrational energies to come back in again for the highest and best.
That's a great message overall, to be in the flow with energies and whatever energy is trying to interact or guide us, right? Because they're also guiding us and orienting us in certain ways, whether it's Fae, whether it's guides, whether it's our angel, whoever, or just frequencies. Sometimes we can't even tell, right? There's a stream of consciousness and information that's here interacting with us all the time. Just be with it. Don't go against the river with the resistance, because it's not going to work for you. Instead, just release and allow grace and flow. Then we step into the quantum field. And in the quantum field, everything just unravels as it needs to versus trying to control it.
Yeah, and there are things, if you know something's not working for you and it's an emotion, an intention, a person, or a job, I have a couple of methods. I'll put it on a fluffy white cloud and I'll say, just let it float on by. I don't wish it harm. Send it back to the universe. I don't need it anymore. And if I'm really having a hard time, the other thing I like to do is I flush it down the toilet. I'm like, okay, I don't need this. Go ahead. Go back and use the water as a way of returning it to the universe.
I
For
love
you, I'm
that.
very big into imagery.
For me, it's imagination of throwing things into the fire and burning in it and
That's
allowing it to
interesting. So you
burn.
work with fire energy. That's funny. So I work with water and I work with air. That's interesting. I like that. I didn't.
Both fire and water. Water, absolutely necessary for me. This is the way I'm recalibrating and taming down my fire. That's when I actually interact most with the elementals as well, when I'm in the water. Because also your field is more open and supportive when you're in the water environment and the sun is setting and you have the flowers around you. It helps you to be very still, like what we talked about, and noticing the subtleties.
It's true. They walk with me all the time. I know they're around. Like if you have something like touch your hand or your shoulder, feel into that feeling, feel that, and then have it not there and feel the difference. And then you'll recognize when they're around. It's very subtle, but they're very protective. Once you have a relationship, they're very protective. We do nice things for each other. I protect them, they protect me.
Beautiful. You do readings too with the fairies. So, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to maybe reawaken that connection with the fairies?
First of all, I have a room on an app called Clubhouse every Wednesday night at 6:45 for about 2 hours, where if you get in touch with me on my website ckalchemy.com, Deanna could probably put it in the show notes, and you send me your information, I will send you a personal invitation for that. It's free. If you want a reading, you'll get an idea in a group setting what I'm about, and then you could book a private reading with me to explore whatever you want. The Fae do like to talk about love and money a lot. I'll tell you a story. Deanna, I don't think you know this one. I read a client of mine a couple of weeks ago, has a small baby, And I pulled a card and I said to her, "Are you pregnant, or do you want another child?" And she goes, "I really wasn't thinking about it. Not really." I said, "Be careful if that's not what you want." And I saw her the other day and she said to me, "When you pulled that card, I was pregnant and didn't know it. I told my husband and we didn't realize it till 2 weeks later when I took a test and we realized I was." So the fairy are sometimes very accurate. If they really feel connected with that energy, they like to spill details like that. So that to me was a very good confirmation, because what I do is I get auditory messages and then sometimes I'll pull the cards after and the cards will agree with what I say. It's very interesting how that works. So if you go
Yeah.
on my website, we can get in touch that way. And then I would definitely invite you to the room if you want to participate. You could just sit and listen on that. And also Instagram, you can get in touch with me too. I like to leave DM messages when I connect with the voice energy. A lot of my friends will talk to me and I'll say, "I have a message," and then I'll leave the message. And sometimes it's even in light language.
Light language was something you and I open for you in my room on Clubhouse as
Yes.
well. And I love that now light language has become an integral part of everything you do. And I'm a big cheerleader of light language. And it's exploring various frequencies from fairies to galactic to angelic to deities. It's the soul expression. And I think the more we have that multidimensional quantum language to interact with these frequencies, the more they also attune to us, and it becomes this full on conversation on with all these realms. I think it's a
Yeah,
wonderful way.
it's almost you're like bilingual or trilingual. You'll start talking in a language and they'll say, we're coming in now." And all of a sudden it'll shift. You know how that goes. I've been in
Yeah.
your rooms many times where you've brought through 3 or 4 different ones in one transmission.
Yes, and they
So,
keep on expanding too. So anyone who's interested in light language or source language can also open up for them. I have a one-on-one session, or you can get a digital course that you can just do it on your own. But for fairy readings, and I know CK has a great room, tap into that world and see how it can support you on your journey, how it can help you to step more into your embodied self and your innocence. Thank you so
and I will,
much, CK, for coming on and sharing with us the Fae world.
and I just want to tell people there's no fake question. Don't think your question is crazy. If you have a feeling or an experience, accept that it is your feeling and experience. It's not wrong. If you ever want to write me a question or ask me something, I'm happy to answer. But just magic is real, guys. Just tap into it. Just explore what's available to you outside of the traditional 5D senses, and just embrace that feeling. It's wonderful when you can open up like that and then you share that love and light and joy with everyone else.
Sprinkle your fairy dust.
Taya ushka mia kaya taya. Dushka maraka tatasha kataya shama kaya yasaya. Dushka marakaya tayasha.
Tumbaitasha. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. For more information, please visit the website dianadivine.com. We are offering different programs, workshops, retreats, as well as one-on-one work such as quantum healing hypnosis, crystalline soul healing, and more on sourcelanguage.org, offering a digitized course. It's self-paced, where you can open up to your divine gift of light language. I'm Diana Mara Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self